Good evening, everybody, and welcome to part 4 of the How to Define Your Digital Journey web series with my partner and co-host Brandon Schaefer from Simple Business Help. Brandon, I don't know about you, but I'm super excited for this last episode and to put everything together from the first 3 into one.
Yeah, man, you've done a great job, Brian, and the crew at Incipient. They've put together all types of decks, social media material. They've highlighted the videos. I mean, you've really done a stellar job. So if you've done this good of a job just in putting this webinar series together, I know you'll do a good job in a great job in taking care of the customers in complex IT projects, because although this may seem simple, this is a complex project, putting 4 webinars in a row. You understand, because I know you've done it, Brian. I'm not gonna dig into you anymore, but great job, man. I really appreciate it. So
likewise, Brandon, I think so far we've provided a lot of value. We've got a lot of great guests on. So for anybody that has missed the first 3 episodes, be sure to head to go.incipientcorp.com/how to define your digital journey, and you can find all of our episodes, guides, and guest information. So we look forward to speaking with all of you through our channels. But without further ado, Brandon, I think we have a great topic today. As we know, we're looking to tie in the previous 3 episodes with really just help bring awareness to how companies are transforming, why they're transforming, and what are the outcomes that some of the biggest brands have experienced. So today we're looking to wrap all of that in, and we're looking to help you guys create an actionable plan to define your own digital journey, right? So we're going to look to take away the awareness, the findings, and now compile all that into actionable steps that you can take to capitalize on the opportunities in your business. And to help us today, we have an extremely special guest, Ari P, the CEO and president of LabPro Inc. and Thirsty Scientist. Ari, it's so great to have you. Thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Awesome. So before we dive into today's topics, share our insights into how you've gone through your own digital journeys and, how these businesses can take the steps, right, that it takes, because it's not a one-shot kill, as we like to say. It'd be great just to share with our community a little bit more about your background and, what were you doing before you started LabPro Inc., and then we can go in a little bit deeper from there.
Yeah, I wish I'd started LabPro Inc., but I would be 3 at the time. So
yes.
LabPro has been in business for over 40 years. So I was fortunate enough to purchase the company while I was in existence, and great company located in Northern California, and I was looking for a lab distribution company in Northern California because I saw a need from a customer base that wasn't being fulfilled. So in 2017, I purchased LabPro. I had sales and marketing as my background. And my goal with purchasing LabPro was to grow it and become the number 3 supplier of innovative lab equipment in California. A lot of people want to be number 1. I want to be number 3.
I like it.
No, I love it. So, of course, like you mentioned, of course, you didn't start it. It would be very impressive if you started at 3. You'd have a head start on many of us. But yeah, I think, for people that don't fully understand, exactly what LabPro Inc. does, right? A lot of it is from, of course, the manufacturing and supplier side to these laboratories. So maybe you could just explain a little bit, who are your general customers and, how do you service them and help that laboratory community?
Definitely. So LabPro, founded in 1979, we distribute innovative laboratory equipment and supplies, including personal protective equipment, including masks, lab coats, and also chemicals to laboratories worldwide and research facilities. So we deal with a spectrum of customers, including Fortune 500 companies like you may have heard of Apple, Tesla, that have labs, down to the startups.
Awesome.
And we fostered also startups to when they were in startup mode all the way to unicorn status, and we're proud of that hand-holding process. So. Again, anything you can think of in a research lab environment, from beakers to goggles, we help with that.
That's amazing. And I think, it's obviously with COVID, right? There are spikes, and I'm sure a whole new demand for it. And of course, we work with similar clients in the pharmaceutical space, and we've seen the amount of equipment that they have in one laboratory. So it's a very impressive company, and laboratories themselves and servicing them. And of course, we'll go into it a little bit deeper, Ari, as we go through the transformation. But just to give people a little bit of a highlight now, can you kind of touch on, how you've utilized the resources and your expertise from Lab Pro Inc. to kind of create your latest company, Thirsty Scientist?
Yeah, so Lab Pro obviously is a very serious company in terms of
yes.
We definitely we're very proud to be serviced especially our communities, both in Northern and Southern California, from firefighters to research labs to medical device who are doing the research on the vaccines with alcohol, PPE, and supplies during COVID and challenging times. But during COVID, obviously it was a challenge and a struggle for a lot of companies and a lot of individuals. So kind of something just came to me with the current existing supplies that we have. Something fun and innovative as we get past COVID was to have and to create a line of innovative lab drinkware. I like drinking moderately, of course, and I like mixology as well. I like mixing drinks. I like mixed drinks, and also I enjoy a nice glass of wine. So I figured, why not use some of the products that we have? And because I've seen it, I've seen some scientists use beakers as
coffee,
as glasses, and I also see in some mixology bars right now, since it's a trend, there's a lot of mixology bars. They use beakers when they have to measure or they're actually making the drinks. So I said, why not create a brand that's fun, that basically our customers can take advantage of it as well, that we can promote. And I came up with the name Thirsty Scientist. And Thirsty Scientist, it has its own website and everything, and it's basically innovative lab drinkware for scientists and mixologists.
Very cool. Yeah, so I think as a nice recap, right, for a lot of the people that, they're just catching up, the Lab Pro Inc. side, right, is more of your enterprise, commercial supplier to,
exactly.
Nonprofits, to government facilities, to for-profit research facilities, right, ranging from Apple to pharmaceuticals, right, across the board.
Yes.
And then from there, right, you've already transformed from the sense of leveraging those existing business resources and seeing an opportunity in more of a consumer market play or a B2C play when it comes to leveraging those beakers, but having a fun spin on it that can have a brand, help bars if they have a mixology theme, or just help, enthusiast scientists use their beakers at home and keep the thing going 24/7.
Exactly.
Awesome, yeah. Ari. So it's really exciting. We look forward to uncovering a lot more of your journey, obviously, as we go in, and don't want to spoil it all too soon. So before we like to dive in, too deep on any episode, we like to just create, a nice level set for people that haven't seen the previous one. So before we go into the 7 steps you must take to define your digital journey, let's just look at some signs that it might be time to transform or revisit your existing strategy, right? So the majority of business owners, avoid or, ignore these warning signs. And of course, at stages in your business, timing is everything. So you might not have the capacity to attack them right away. But you certainly want to ensure that you're aware to them and starting to work towards them, or you can risk being left behind. So here we have 3 of the top signs and some symptoms that you can see for them. So the very first one would be your current business or technology practices are inefficient, right? If you just have defined processes because you've been in business for a decade and every employee's been with you and they know the communication flow, right? It's a lot harder to scale and bring in new talent. If you're still using spreadsheets, you've taken the first step to digitizing your processes, but you're missing the opportunity to centralize your data and make it a lot easier to share and avoid human error, right? So anything around being inefficient, not having standardized workflows, right? If you're looking to get that basic standard foundation, technology can certainly help. The second one is your product focused instead of customer focused. 5-10 years ago, we would probably get away with being a lot more product focused, being competitive on product pricing or product features. But nowadays, consumers are a lot less loyal to brands than they used to be, and they're looking for improved experiences, personalized experiences, and new offerings. So if you've continued to do business the same way for a decade, you kind of start to risk losing some of your customers to someone that may just give them a better experience, although they don't have better products. And the last one can slightly relate to the first point, but you aren't addressing key points in your employee experience. So if you don't have standardized processes, if you have outdated technologies, then your employees are most likely losing countless hours to manual or repetitive tasks on a daily basis, such as updating spreadsheets, sending multiple emails to give team members updates where that information could be readily available somewhere else. And also a lot of employees nowadays, they all use consumer products at home. They all have iPhones, they all use apps, they know what Mint is to track their finances. So they'll probably start asking you, why do we have such an outdated financing system? Why are we still on spreadsheets? Can't we use something like Mint? Right? And that is the value that employees can bring. So if you're hearing these pain points, you should treat it as a sign that you might want to start to change. And there's a lot of value that can come through those change. So Ari, I think just a question to you, right? Of course, you acquired, right? Did not start LabPro Inc. But when you first came in, obviously the business was around for 40 plus years, had a successful track record. So what were some of the signs that you saw, whether it was time to transform or times to capitalize on a new opportunity?
Yeah, definitely. So when I bought the business in 2017, even though it was 2017, the website was a PDF. Just a one-page, non-clickable PDF. And the owner, he prided himself on service, and we serviced our customers. He services the original owner and founder, services customers impeccably. We had great feedback, and he was the previous owner was very focused on the brick and mortar. We also have a brick and mortar store, which separates ourselves from other lab distributors. Not only can you call, order, you can actually come into our store. It's like a small Home Depot of lab supplies. So LabPro not only has actually a store that we can ship from, but we have the largest lab supply showroom in California. It's probably because it's the only lab supply showroom in California. It's the largest. So that was the big marketing tool. So when I saw that, I said, why not recreate this? And also, we have great customer service over the phone, great customer service when you see us. Why not recreate this in an online format as well? Because that's where, obviously, we were going. So it's almost like the Zappos example. Whether you call them customer service, and I've visited Zappos facility, they provide tools. For those who don't know, Zappos just sells running shoes and got acquired for Amazon about a decade ago for $1 billion. And it's not like they have the lowest pricing, but they have great service. And whether you call them or do online shopping, they provide excellent service in any format or any platform you choose. That was my goal with LabPro. And we're 4 iterations into the website. So when I first bought it so we're number 4, and on a platform that I finally could see that it will grow with us for years to come. We're now on a Shopify platform, and we did that during one of the biggest growth years of our history. Actually, the biggest growth year of our history, which was last year. During the pandemic, when things were growing, some people would just sit on the growth. I decided to reinvest and move us to a Shopify platform for our customers online, and also to enhance our online ordering experience. Right. So it's not done. It's never going to be done, in my opinion. It's always an improvement, a work in progress, as I call it. But it's our living, breathing catalog from a marketing perspective. Where before you used to have the IKEA catalog, now your catalog is, in my opinion, is your e-commerce store or your website.
Definitely. And, relating it kind of to those signs, right, as you saw when you took over the company, right, the core infrastructure was sound. There was no employee complaints around how the business was being run. Service was being done at high quality, and all your existing customers were happy. So the sign that you saw was the opportunity to better cater to those customers at a scalable way outside of a physical location or phone service, right? So you were able to see that and build out that side, which we'll definitely be getting in deeper when we get into the digital transformation stuff. So I think that's a key point, because I think a lot of businesses at this point, right, that have been around 10, even 20 years, they have the way of doing business now, right? They have their customers, they're profitable, but they're trying to see what's next, where can we move, and what's not just incremental improvement, but can really open us up. And I think that just really helps you see, you can start small, iterate quickly, and then you can build that new bucket. So it's a really good point and a great story from the LabPro side that we'll be digging in more. Brandon, we talk about these signs, all the time in our offline meetings when we work with our customers and collaborate on projects. But, what do you think are some of the signs that maybe might not be on this list or are this way, but people don't recognize that they're employee pain points, or they don't recognize that they're signs to transform? Do you see common things in these businesses from your side?
I look at everything from the customer's viewpoint and what is the customer experience. I'm very customer service oriented, and a lot of the stuff that we drive our business out of is due to customer needs. So we're not just doing something just to do it because we think it's going to make us feel good. We listen to what's going on with the customers, and then we create technology, or we deliver what they need in the most simplest and easiest of terms as well, right? Because we all want to talk about these complex things that we can do, but in reality, all we need to do is provide the ultimate client experience, right? What is it going to take for somebody to say, hey, I talked to Brandon, I had him do something, he provided a great experience, excellent communication, excellent reporting. I think the one thing, as I'm talking things out here, is I know we went over standard operating procedures, we went over some tech stuff, but reporting features. I think companies need to be able to report and provide a console where customers can go in and see what they spent, what they ordered, what was the spend over the past 6 months, 3 months, 12 months. So I would say, just to answer this question directly, it would be just to provide detailed reporting customer consoles where they can get their information 365 days a year, anytime that they're online. So that would be my answer there.
Definitely. No, and I couldn't agree more, right? I think if you're not aware of what these big signs are, right, if the change is not knocking at your front door, the first place to look is data, right? And just by having simple reports, you can naturally identify those bottlenecks or areas that, are prone for a larger upside of growth, right? Much like Ari's company, they see the store is doing great. They see online, call-in sales are doing good. How can we remove the friction to enable more customers to come into our business?
Exactly. That onboarding process needs to be dead simple. Dead simple. That process of ordering needs to be totally fluid. And I was just booking a travel trip today, and the process of the ordering was so simple. And then after I ordered came the upsell, right? It was, hey, for $100 more a day, you can stay in the executive suite. So I'm like, oh, $100. But in reality, I probably ended up paying through the upsells. I probably ended up paying more than if I had done it up front. But the process was so fluid that I just went along with it. And that's the way the experience needs to be now. We've all gathered all this information from people and customers. We have all this information. When they last ordered, what they ordered, what the trends are. Us as companies need to circle back and use that information to create dead simple upsell opportunities. Use the information we have to empower future sales and provide better customer experiences.
Certainly. I couldn't agree more. So we'll roll right into, once you've identified those signs, you feel like there's a bottleneck to alleviate or an opportunity to capitalize on. As you see your opportunities, right, in the beginning, there's going to be a lot of them, and you're going to want to focus your ideas as a team and as a group and as a company. but you can typically put them into one of these three buckets. So we like to call these the sources of digital opportunity at our company. And when we're helping our clients identify, should we optimize things first internally, or should we build a new e-commerce store, or should we automate, right? You can put these ideas into the different buckets and then see where you can realize the most business value on the shortest amount of time, right? That's the most important part. To start, don't start with a huge uphill battle, right? That's going to not allow you to build momentum. So when it comes to the buckets, we like to keep it simple. There's three of them. The first one is to create, right? So you can develop a solution to address a specific problem. If your current technology does not enable you to do it, you can build something on top or switch technologies to address a critical problem that's creating a backlog in your business. The second one is you can create a new personalized customer experience, right? Much like LabPro Inc. is in the process of doing and has started to do already. They went from a PDF to V1 of the catalog, to V2, to V3, to now V4, which is a fully dynamic Shopify cart, enabling clients to come in, see what their top products are, and making the reordering process a lot easier. And lastly, you can use it to capitalize on a new opportunity, right? Like Thirsty Scientists, leveraging your same infrastructure, leveraging your same teams, your same assets and resources, but spinning off a new brand and creating a new revenue opportunity. The second one is you can optimize, right? If you already have some existing technology in place, you have an accounting software, you have a CRM or a WMS, you can first focus on connecting those systems, centralizing your data, enabling communication to be easier between the teams, and removing all that manual communication, like a sales rep, calling the warehouse for an update, or a client having to call to see where the shipment is, right? Everything is removing that friction when it comes to the optimization bucket. And if you're fortunate enough to capitalize on the first two, you feel your whole infrastructure that's in place is, very sound and you've gotten the return on that, then you can start to automate, right? This is where some of those that are coming out of their first wave of digital transformation are leaning their initiatives, and they're focusing on very specific business use cases where if they were able to automate that task, they can easily measure the business value that it can provide, right? So Ari, I know from your end, we went in, the create bucket is certainly there, but if we took it to the back end and just got away from customer experience a little bit, right? As you scale the online side and, you're working the physical location as well, how have you guys either optimized your back end or, your back office processes? What are some of the changes that you've had to make or consider making in the future based on the new demand that you're creating?
Yeah, definitely. As we implemented the new website, we also looked at the back end, and the infrastructure that was in place at the time in 2017 was not going to accommodate our growth or our vision for growth. So we definitely had to do not only just front facing for our customers, but also the back end ERP system, CRM, to maintain the same level, to maintain and grow our service levels to our customers. And we invested heavily, and we're still doing it on our CRM and ERP. And now our reps can basically see customers or customer information through an app anywhere in the world. I can see orders, I can enter orders anywhere in the world. And also we just upgraded our ERP from initially we were on version 8 to version 11, and this past weekend to version 14, which will enable us barcoding and inventory control, scanning and everything that will just make and enhance our customer experience at the end. So the back end is important, like you said, because it helps with the customer interaction and experience.
Correct. And I think just as a small note for some of the people that might not know exactly what an ERP is, right? It just stands for Enterprise Resource Planning System. So a lot of companies are, like we've talked in the past, right? They stand up a standalone CRM like Salesforce, right? Then they go have QuickBooks Pro for accounting. And then you've got Sage or Peachtree or somebody running the warehouse or NetSuite, right? But then it gets very difficult because those systems are not communicating to one another, right? So I think even with your ERP, right, just because we know a little bit about each other and what the solution is, it's called Odoo, right? But for you guys, right, within that ERP itself, I think people just need to understand that all those standalone applications are actually treated as modules in the application. So the ERP encompasses your CRM. It automatically speaks to your warehouse, which can speak to customers, which can speak to finance. So you guys essentially have your ERP tied into the website, and then any orders that come in can go through the entire order flow within that one ERP system itself. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah.
Perfect. Yep. So I think, the ERP is really where a lot of businesses, if you have those single solutions right now and you're trying to say, how can I cram this data together? Most often it's a lot easier to replace those 3 or 4 with one centralized ERP rather than trying to get them to speak to one another. And I think, Brandon, we've seen that issue come up a lot. So just wanted to dive in a little bit more on that. And Ari, I think, we've covered bits and pieces of your transformation journey, but now we're really going to walk through what the 7 steps are to defining your digital journey, right? So we'll try to ask you to go back to, your early weeks or your early year at Lab Pro Inc. and the first month of thinking of Thirsty Scientists and deploying those brands. And, how was your team thinking of taking those first steps? So what I'll do to line us up is I'll just review the 7 steps high level, and then as a group, we'll go one by one. But generally, to define the first phase of your digital journey or your digital transformation, everything that comes first is not related to technology. That is the number one thing to mention, right? The very first point is you need to align on your why. Digital transformation is not a standalone strategy. It's a business strategy. They need to be fully incorporated. And if your organization is not aligned on why you're making all these changes, why are you looking to go this direction in the future, right? Everybody's just the blind leading the blind, and no one really knows, why are we doing this? What's the intended impact? Once you've aligned on your why, then it's a lot easier to prepare your culture for change, right? It's no secret that humans are at the center of every single digital transformation. They are the number one people running it. Technology is just the vehicle to get there, right? And to scale those human capital resources and knowledge further. So once you've prepared your culture for change, you want to start small and strategic. On our previous episodes, we focused on the innovation curve, Brandon, right? And the more that you look to spend, if you have $150,000, right, and you put that all in one 12-month project that's going to take you 12 to 14 months to realize the business value, you're not going to be as successful as you would if you broke that up into $10,000, $15,000 projects with smaller business value that could compound to that same amount. The fourth one is mapping out the technology, right? So once you've aligned what you're doing, the culture is ready, and you're starting small, then you need to find the technology that can help you scale for your long term. Sometimes that can incorporate, needing to find partners, needing to bring in expertise from the outside if you don't have your own team. And once you've gotten that small project done, working as a cohesive group, then you want to make sure you have very strong channels for feedback, refine, and then scale and continuously transform, right? So with that, we'll roll right into the first topic, which is aligning our why. And again, we'll say it time and time again in each of these episodes, but the reason why digital transformation and the reason 90% of them fail is that digital transformation means something different to every single company and every single person within that company. So if aligning your why takes 3 months, take the time to do it, because it will build all your momentum going forward and you'll have clear business value. So in the beginning, you do not want to focus on technology at all, right? That is a backward approach, which often leads to failure because you don't know your needs against that technology. You're choosing to change your business to make it work for the technology. So as you focus on aligning your why, focus on what are the business needs, what are the business goals, and what are the goals for the next 5 to 10 years, and really focus on that, and then reverse engineer your way back from those business priorities to find a solution that can help you. So, Ari, obviously you've been through this, right, on both fronts. So it's easy to say we have a PDF website. Let's make it into an e-commerce website, right? But how did you align the why? Was it comparing the Zappos example and saying, I want to be the 3rd best online store following this model? How did you align your team on this is the direction we want to take the consumer experience?
And like you said, Brian, I think the core foundation of the company was there already in terms of being customer focused. We're doing a really good job customer-wise with our existing customers, but we're very concentrated in the Bay Area. And well, first thing, being in the Bay Area, I think you need to be innovative. I mean, that's the hub of innovation for the United States, in my opinion.
Yes.
Facebook, Google, all the companies are there. So we need to keep up with the times. You can't have a non-clickable website with no online ordering for the future, for the foreseeable future. But to really expand nationally, or even within the presence of California, in my opinion, the only way to do that would be to stand out from a web presence perspective. And even the big companies, their websites aren't the big lab distribution companies. Their websites aren't the flashiest or anything. So I thought there was a big opportunity there, not only to service our customers properly, but the why is we were customer obsessed, and how do we reach our customers better? And that's through digital transformation.
Perfect. Yeah. So like you said, you already had like the mission down, right? The service and that clear, company mission of we want to be the best customer servicing these categories. So when it came to aligning the why on the project, it was more, we know we want to reach nationally, get out of our bubble here in San Fran. And obviously, the digital means is the most scalable way to do that. So sure. Brandon, from your side, right, you work with a lot of people, and aligning teams is not an easy thing, even if it's a 3-man team versus a 20-man team. So, what are some steps that leaders can take to, have the proper empathy through this phase? Because a lot of leaders come in with their own idea of what they should do, right? But aligning the why takes understanding everybody's perspective. So I'm curious from your end, I know you work with a lot of the C-level side. So how have you seen them approach aligning their teams?
I think the best leaders just listen. I think they listen with empathy. They're resilient. They're persistent. They're consistent with their efforts. They continue to show up. And when it comes to digital transformation, it's not always going to be right. The project, you're going to map it out. You're going to have the best team do it and everything else like that. There's going to be hiccups. When I drive to the grocery store with my wife and kids in the car, I'm expecting a perfect trip. But unfortunately, they're cutting down trees, and we need to take a detour on the left and the right. And your digital transformation, or a digital transformation, is going to be the same way. And that's why it's important for leaders just to be patient as well, and to get team members involved on the project, not just the C-suite. Get customer service, get human resources, get everybody involved, and that way, you're creating an environment where people feel they're a part of. And when people feel a part of, they become shining stars. So, and there's nothing more than a digital transformation project to make somebody that may have been a little bit shy, may have been a little bit in the shadows, to come to the forefront. And that's what it's all about for a leader, to use this digital transformation project to create the next leaders. I'm always trying to find my next replacement. I mean, that's the bottom line. I'm trying to find 2-3 people. And the next thing you know, you have 6, 10, 15, but, and they're all leaders in their own right. So I would just say that digital transformation takes time, it takes energy, and it's going to take a lot of money as well. It's going to take money. I know there are a lot of people that come on and say, hey, this is what it's going to cost, but it costs money to better your business. That's really all I have on that, Brian.
100%. And, I couldn't agree more. When it comes to leaders and aligning on the why, you have to prepare the whole culture for change. And the only way you can do that is to actually involve the whole culture, not tell them that the change is coming, right? There's a very significant difference between those. And Brandon, you really, hit the nail on the head when it comes to, building what a lot of people say is like a team of stakeholders or a value chain across the organization, right? So when it comes to preparing your culture, the leadership is the number one driver of that, right? If they're not constantly showing how they're progressing on the transformation, they're not being held accountable to their role on the project, it will fall apart like any other initiative in any other business, right? So one of the key ways that the leaders can help drive that change, Brandon, you already touched on it, right, is and we do this with a lot of our customers. We call it, building a value chain of the key representatives. So everybody that's at every key touch point, from the customer service side to warehouse fulfillment to finance and billing, right? You want to have one stakeholder from every aspect of the business that you're looking to impact, right? And ensure that they are in there from the very beginning. If you're just building a CRM for sales, fine. But the general finance team should be there, and they should know how things are doing, because how are all those sales invoices going to come to them, right? So it's really important to build that stakeholders. A lot of people like to call them a team of cheerleaders, right? But again, if you have, all the C-level driving the project within their respective departments, and then you have a representative underneath them in each department that is much closer, right, to the employees and those that really know all the key day-to-day impacts, now you've created a chain where all that information can come up, and you can really, digest it and find the best way to align that to your why. And more importantly, Brandon, like you said, it nurtures the culture, right? You can give people smaller tasks, tell them to investigate a platform, give them something to be accountable in that journey, so that everybody starts to become a team and not just waiting for the new technology to come, right? So Ari, I know, from your end, we had some of the culture there a little bit, right? But it was more of a traditional business, right? So of course, they could see the need to go digital. Being in San Fran, right, and the Silicon Valley area, you're definitely prone to being very aware of those opportunities naturally. But have you had any difficulty, being more of a traditional business where maybe you had older employees working for you, right? Or just people that have done business a certain way for that organization for 30 plus years? Did you have any, not resistance to change, but, pushback or, things that you had to overcome as you look to pivot more to the digital approach?
For sure. I mean, resistance to change, yes, there was. But you lead with example. We lost 2 team members during the transformation. We grew, but we lost the original 2 team members, and they couldn't keep up. One of the administrative assistants, she actually couldn't do an Excel spreadsheet. So those things that need to, in terms of gradually change, they didn't. But we do have a team member that's been with us for over 25 years. She's accustomed to change, and she likes it, and so she's kept up with it, and loves the new path and orientation, because it makes her life easier. Also, I mean, I live and breathe this, so it's not I'm telling the team members that this is what you need to do, go implement it. I'm in the trenches with the social media and everything. I do the Instagram posts, I run the social media, along Brandon helps, actually. Brandon's company helps us with it. But I remember starting these, because we didn't have any social media accounts in 2017. I mean, nothing. So we opening up a Facebook, LinkedIn page, Instagram. I remember doing 5 posts a day on Instagram. And now we're actually the lab distributor nationwide with the biggest amount of followers, 22,000 followers on Instagram. So, and it took, from having nothing in 2017 and I remember posting, and my old buddies from my old work would laugh at me like, you have 10 followers. Well, now we're at 22,000. So it's been a journey, but you have to practice what you preach, for sure.
Definitely. I mean, I think we're the same here, right? I mean, all of us on the web series too, just another element of finding the new way to put the company out there, find the way to communicate about your company. And, Brandon and I, obviously we have marketing teams that can help build beautiful presentations and collateral, but when it comes to the topics, the guests, that's all our time as well. But we felt a lot of, fun excitement internally, because the whole team sees something new, new content for marketing to leverage, sales, it's just a good aspect, so you get some juices flowing. But I do think you touched on one good point that we've touched on briefly in previous episodes, but sometimes preparing the culture for change actually requires, removing people from the culture that can't move to the next generation of it. And it's not supposed to be a negative thing, right? There's people that have been in their career that don't want to go through that next transition. And then there's people that say, if I'm going to go through that, I'm going to transition my whole self to a completely different skill set. And there's nothing wrong with that. I just think it's something that a lot of businesses don't want to prepare themselves for. They want to convince everybody, the sales guy for 30 years that only wants to be there 2 more years, that he needs to go on a 5-year transformation plan. It might just not be in line with him. So you kind of have to prepare yourself for some just tough and honest conversations with those that you value in your organization.
Definitely. I think the previous company that I used to work for, we had a large team, over 500 employees, and there was a lot of that going on. Is keeping the team was important, but they wouldn't evolve. I mean, it was about keeping the team more than evolving. And those 2 employees that I was sad to see leave, but they weren't pushed or terminated by us. They decided, because of our growth path, what they needed to learn, that it was just, at the end, LabPro was moving too fast and it wasn't for them. And, and they decided to leave on their own accord. But we were very transparent with our goals, what needed to be done to get there, how nimble we would be. It's one of our core values, being nimble. So it's some people won't keep up with change, and that's the best way. If you're going to implement change, it's always better to push change and have either people will keep up. You're gonna lose certain people, and sometimes it's not because they're not performing. They just need better guidance or for you to share your vision. But sometimes they're just not going to be able to keep up.
Exactly. But I think that says, a lot to how clear you guys made how clear you aligned your why, and how clear you focused on preparing that culture for change. So you didn't put them in the middle of the project and then say, catch up. You're saying these changes are coming in 3 months. These are the tools you're going to need before that timeline comes. And naturally, right, they just felt like they couldn't uphold that and be a part of that cultural change, which is completely fine. But that's like the cleanest outcome that you could have, right? That says that you really made your culture and your direction so clear that you didn't push people out because you think they couldn't do it, right? They recognized on their own accord, like, listen, I've had a great time here, but I'm just not going to look to go through this whole next, era of the organization. So I think that's really key. I'm keeping us on our pace here a little bit because we have a few more to go through. So Brandon, do you have anything you want to add on the culture for change? Or I know you kind of led right into it really well, but I'd love to just say that.
I would just say that it's, a long time ago, my grandfather had a big vending business, and it was family run, and it was run with friends and taking care of people. And I still believe in that philosophy today. But in business today, at the pace we're going, as leaders, we need to make business decisions on what's going to keep our lights turned on, and what's going to create good customer experiences, and what's going to deliver high quality products at a fair price level. And some of these decisions are tough to make, and sometimes people are going to stay and people are going to go, but the train's going to go. The train's going to hit the stop, or train or plane's going to take off at 4:45. Once that door closes, they're not going to open that thing back up. So I would say for anybody that's an employee going through a digital transformation or anything else like that, like, buy into it, start drinking the Kool-Aid, be a part of it, and just go with the flow. Use the energy of the company to help better yourself and learn as much as you can. And ultimately, if you stay, you stay. If you don't, you don't, but you use every day to learn as much as you can.
Definitely. No, and I think that's a really good thing to emphasize because, we talked a lot about driving the culture, obviously can push people out. But a big point is that it also gives a lot of people, especially younger people in the organization, nothing against older people or anybody that's been there for a while, but it gives newer people, at an entry-level position, a whole new opportunity to shine, right? And maybe you uncover, college kids come out now, they know how to use social tools. They know these aspects, and they know a little bit more than they even know about themselves. So digital transformation and really empowering your employees, not carrying them, right? And enables you to see actually more skill sets that you might not even know the employees had because you had them in a more traditional environment, right? So I think that's just another good thing that we can tie off at the end on how you can prepare your culture for change. And of course, once you've got your culture in, you have aligned your why, Now it's trying to find a place to take the first 3 steps, right? We're not trying to transform the whole business. Where can we take 3 steps? And Ari, much like you said in the beginning here, right? Digital transformation is extremely iterative. You plan on seeing your customer transformation probably go through 3 more iterations, in the next year or 2, depending on the depth we want to define an iteration to be. But digital transformation is not a single event. So when you're looking to start your transformation, you want to start with a very small project, something that's extremely measurable and does not take a long time to execute. In the IT world, right, these are often referred to as proof of concepts or POCs. So within one of these POCs, you want to focus on one specific business use case. Ari will, take the Lab Pro Inc. PDF website use case specifically, right, and say, if we made this change, what is the quantifiable business value that we think we can have, right? If, I don't know, Ari, there's 1,000, orders being placed a day through phones right now. If we made a website, how many do we think we could channel through there, which would reduce our cost on the service side of the phones, right, as an example. That's measurable, right? But now, just because there's good business value in the use case, you also have to make sure that you're tracking your time to value, right? You do not want your first project to take more than 6 months to realize that value, because everybody in your organization will start to lose the momentum of what it is. So the whole goal of starting small and strategic is finding something very small. If it's a CRM that you need and everything's in spreadsheets, great. Let's do that, and let's save sales reps 2 hours a day from updating an Excel sheet because the CRM updates dynamically. That's quantifiable. You can probably do that project and free costs can be tracked against the ROI based on how much time we're looking per sales rep and what you pay them for. So that's just a very specific example of how you want to start small. Whatever you're envisioning, try to find 10% of it, and then from there try to find 10% of that, and you'll probably find where you should start if you're looking too big. So Ari, of course, the customer experience is a big thing to take on, especially when you're going from PDF to full catalog that you have now, right? But maybe if we're just looking at the incremental steps that you took, or how you look to start Thirsty Scientists, in a very lean way, what was your thought process of where are we going to start? And did you actually start small, or did you bite off, something larger and kind of feel that as you moved your way through your journey?
Yeah, no, it's starting small. I mean, you want to do everything but every small to medium-sized business, unless you're Fortune 500 or backed by private equity, every small business has limited resources and limited funds. So it's how to best utilize those resources. And to get your team involved as quantifiable goals, like you said, Brian, one of the easy things for us this year, I mean, it goes back to our 2017, we had 4 Google reviews. At the end of last year, we had 40 Google reviews. And one of the goals that I'd put down for us for this year, again, it's a small goal, but I knew Google reviews translate to other customers seeing it, better SEO, search engine optimization, and just better results overall when other customers are looking for lab supplies. Because you have the customer's validation that this is a business that I want to do business with in the future. So we had a goal by the end of this year, since we're at 40 by end of 2020, to hit 100 Google reviews. Well, when you have a combined approach and one focus, we actually are currently mid-year at 130 Google reviews already. So we shattered that record or goal that we had of 100, and we're sitting at 130 reviews, which is not much for a restaurant or a popular restaurant, or a lab distribution company.
It's very high. Yeah.
It's very odd to have 130 Google reviews. Even the biggest laboratory distributor in the nation doesn't have Google reviews. In terms of, I think they have less than a dozen.
Exactly. And obviously that's a great way of explaining like how to start small on transforming the Google experience from the goal. And then how did you keep the execution lean of that? What was the strategy to increase from 40 to 80, or 40 to 100 as an example? Did you guys put any tools in place, or was more just a customer service side, making sure they asked that at the end of each call?
Yeah, so they first identified the goal, share it. It was one of our metrics. 100 Google reviews was a metric that I shared at the beginning of the year with the team. We had 5 big rocks or goals that we wanted to achieve. And then these were the quantitative goals to reach those 5 rocks. And we want to be definitely come up on the first page in a lot of SEO rankings. Google reviews was one of them. I shared that with the team, and I said, how do we get there now? So now we have the goal of 100. So how do we get there? We can do it via our interactions with customers, call-ins when they see us face-to-face, and through a widget that we design on every order online. We send out an email, which when you click it, automatically goes to the Google review page.
Very nice. Yeah, and I think, that's a perfect example, because people are going to go to your website now and be like, he went from a PDF to this, right?
Yeah.
And they're not going to understand how many micro steps that you had that, compounded into, first you went with Odoo, right? Then you went to Shopify. So there's a lot of iterations there. But the thing is, you gave your team that beacon, right? This is the goal. We're going to iterate until we get there, but let's all work cohesively to find the best, approaches to achieve this goal. And I think, again, that's like the most underlying part of digital transformation. You just have to give someone the lighthouse or the beacon to head to. And most organizations surprise themselves, on how they get there and also how fast they get there once you said, right, you've aligned that central focus.
Yeah, I imagine it took almost 4 years to reach 40 reviews. And then we did over 90 reviews in half a year.
That's amazing. That's the value of compounding.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. No. Exactly. So, Brandon, I know we've talked about, starting small on the few other ones, right? And our key there is always the momentum side of things. And I think Ari just gave a great example, in reference from how big his website is now, but there was just those soft things to start. So when it comes to, making things quantifiable or setting that beacon, what are some of the key ways that we can help businesses plan or like define those in enough clarity that their team is clear on where they're heading and it's not a vague goal?
I would just say, pick out a target or set a target. So I always set like a daily target. That's what are we going to accomplish today? And then a long-term target, right? So everything that we do on a daily basis is going to help move us forward. And we keep ourselves accountable by saying, hey, is this activity that we're doing today moving us closer to our goal or further away? But as for these simple digital transformations, just like Ari said, with just the widget on the actual order form or the post order form that gets sent out, it's a simple click through. So they set a target of getting more reviews, which is a phenomenal idea. So you set that target and then you reverse engineer it, right? You say, okay, so how can we get there? Well, we can have people call up on the phone all day long and say, hey, I know you bought XYZ product or service, 3 months ago, 2 months ago, a month ago. Or we can just naturally put it, again, like I was saying in the beginning, make it a fluid process. You order, you receive a package, there's a link, you naturally click on it. I mean, that's just one simple example of digital transformation. Another example, dead simple, well, I say dead simple, but not everything is dead simple, but it's just putting a chat bot on your website now, right? It's one of the easiest digital transformation projects to do. It's one of the most overlooked, but you see it more and more on the top websites. And for a website starting out, a small business, anything else, that can definitely increase sales without a doubt. So I would say just start those small targets, reverse engineer, and then make sure you're hitting those and use technology to get to where you want to go. So just like I get in my car, if I don't have petrol in there or fuel in there, right, I'm not going to go anywhere. So use the technology as your fuel to get you to where you want to go. And before I get all fired up, I'm gonna stop there.
Perfect. No, it's right in line. And, I think that's the clearest part. A lot of the things that companies look at will be huge business systems and things like that, but there's so many incremental steps you can take until it's worth getting one of those systems because you've created such a new demand, right? Now, one thing to keep in mind is as you're taking those small steps, it's fine to take, one-off solutions, doing things simpler. But as you start to map out, more concrete technology, you also want to just make sure that you're starting small, but that technology can also support you to where you want to go, at least in the next 3 to 5 years, so that you're not constantly recycling and changing your technology as you reach the next stage of your plan, right? So now that we've aligned the why, the culture is ready, and we focused on where we're going to actually start our project, what's the business value, what's the business use case we're going to focus on, now you can align technology. Right. So just to further iterate, we're essentially halfway through what the planning process would be. And this is the first time we're talking about technology. So if you're talking about before this step, you should stop, revisit your business goals and really just break that down to the smallest level you can and then align your technology. There's a funny formula here, Ari, you might get a kick out of it if you went this way, but they say a formula for an unsuccessful technology-driven transformation is new technology plus old operations, just equal expensive old operations, right? A lot of people that lead technology first are hearing the complaints of employees, the technology doesn't do this, it doesn't do that, so they just rip out the technology and put a new one in that does those two things, but it was really the whole workflow that was broken, right? So we always like to say simply garbage in, garbage out. If you don't fix the business goals, align those to your processes, identify your processes on paper, it's not going to matter if you scale it or accelerate with technology because you're just going to experience those pain points a lot faster, right? So you must be aware of that. And really nowadays in the stage where a lot of companies are, I don't think a lot of them are as aware to open source technologies, right, Ari, when it comes to Odoo and the benefits that platforms like that provide compared to traditional ERPs, right? The cost of licensing software is not what it was 5 years ago. The cost of running a server is not what it was 5 years ago. The cost of building custom technology and leveraging a foundation and only customizing what you need, right? You can get a lot more for your dollar, if you will, if you know exactly what you need. And this is really why this is the time for small businesses to implement these technologies that are much more cost effective and start taking market share from the larger conglomerates, right, that have had it forever because they were able to dispense their large sums of capital when technology used to be more to create, right? So when it comes to these newer technology, it's mobile technology, social media, omni-channel, right? And then of course we can lean into the future generation of technology, which will be AI, machine learning, augmented reality, and those alike, right? But most likely as you start your digital transformation, you may need one or more of these newer technologies, right? Open source technologies, cloud servers, right? You're going to be using one of these things. So you definitely want to become at least familiar to what they are and make sure that when you identify one of these, that it can be a technology enabler, which means that it can scale with you. So if the first version of the Shopify site only has 10 products, that's fine. But our total catalog's 1,500 products. So can this sustain getting to 1,500 products? If it can't, you don't want to use it because 6 months later when you want to add all your products, you're going to need a whole new platform and go through your process again, right? So it's the ability to start small from a strategy standpoint, but identify and map out your technology that can be elastic with you for your long-term goals. And Ari, we've kind of gone through, the site's gone through some iterations. So, no matter how well you map out your technology, there's always a half-life on certain things or new opportunities that come that cause you to pivot. But what were some of your learnings from the PDF site to, I know you did Odoo, maybe there was a half step in between there. What were some of your learnings just on how you are choosing technology now for the future that you learned from having to make a few changes?
Yeah, the previous company I worked for, we had over roughly $250 million in sales, and kind of like what you said, Brian, had different, for accounting had a software, had a platform, CRM was another platform, the inventory management was another platform, and it was all patched up. So they were so big, it was hard to change. I think I definitely agree with what you said, Brian. This is the best time for any small business starting out to find platforms and systems where they can rival major corporations because of they have, unless they're in Silicon Valley, which they've progressed over time, they have their own systems. But the other ones, they usually have prehistoric based systems that they patched up. And every time there's a change, it's hard for them. So
Yes.
I currently have a better, and I've worked with my old system previously, a better ERP, CRM ecosystem than a company 10 times my size. And it's because of I started later, and it was I implemented when we were smaller.
Correct. And I think, that's a huge point, right? It's never too soon to start. You don't have to start at this massive scale, but if you've identified that technology that can scale with you, you can start with just one CRM module. Just build the deal board and let them manage contacts, then add an email marketing, right? And compound that through. And once you're done with the sales, aka, the inbound side of your value chain, then you can move to inventory, right? And everything from there. And I think, Ari, from our side, right, there's kind of these different categories of solutions that are out there. As a company, in the IT world, we describe them as product, right? Direct products that you're subscribing to. So Salesforce, right? Then we have platforms, which is Microsoft, SAP, NetSuite, right? And licensing to them. And then you have open source platforms, which are your Shopify's, your Odoo's, right? And those that are a lot more easier to customize. So I'm curious from your side, if you were trying to help explain the benefits to a business owner, right? If they had previously looked at NetSuite 5 years ago and it was a $20,000 annual licensing fee and it only had 80% of what they needed, right? How would you compare Odoo and an open source technology to some of those more traditional ones?
Yeah, I did my research prior to the purchase. So once I was in there, I knew what platform they were using. They were on a Sage platform. We didn't have a CRM at all. We're on a Sage platform. They managed inventory control and accounting through there. So there was no CRM. So I had done my research previously, and from SAP to NetSuite to all that. And for me, the size that we were and the growth, I decided on Odoo as a platform. And Odoo, I saw that it caters to small business and also Fortune 500 companies like Shell, Jack in the Box, Toyota uses it. So there was room for growth. If I get to the size that they were, then I'll be doing something good. And it was easy enough to implement. It was it's the number one used ERP platform in the world, even more than SAP actually, but it's more known in Europe than it is here. So it was a really good system. Obviously, there was going to be some less consultants in the United States than SAP, but I've heard horror stories with SAP implementation. So after my research, that's where I ended up. And I've been very happy ever since.
And I think, like you said, a lot of those like product companies, right? SAP, NetSuite, et cetera, the same way that you described the larger, laboratory suppliers, right? When they built their software, it was 10 years ago. So they were the only one. It was a great system. But now even SAP, they're obviously doing it successfully. But they have a lot of work to upgrade those older products, make them all sync together. And that's why companies that are even using them usually have a higher cost of customizing the platform because they weren't really built to interlock with everybody. Where for people that don't know open source, right, Odoo kind of acts like an a la carte. They have all the modules that you need, but you can go there and buy what you want off the shelf. And it's not so rigid as a product that you can customize it, integrate it, and work with it, in any way, right? And I think, Brandon, I'm keeping us on pace, so I'm going to move us right into the next one here. But from, Ari's side, you kind of just mentioned it, right? There's always the process of moving forward, of having to investigate these technologies, and you have to take your time to do it, right? So a lot of organizations, especially small businesses, they don't have a CIO, or a CTO that's going to lead the whole charge, or 10 engineers on staff. So they seek out partners, right? They seek out expertise to understand technologies. So Brandon, we've obviously spoken a lot. We're partners together. You help a lot of clients on marketing. We work together on the technology side. So we've seen it firsthand on how we can work as partners. But what's some of like the strong advice that you would look to align somebody if they're looking to seek a partner? What are you looking for as key traits, and what are some of the red flags that they should look for?
I think a warm handoff it's just like a relationship, right? If somebody knows somebody and they say, hey, you would be a great match for him or her, it's the same thing in business too, because I think people that know you and your company and they see somebody that may be a good fit, I think those warm introductions are really some of the best ways, because you kind of have that influence and authority already, and you've already have a proven track record with that person. I think jumping into any type of tech, any type of tech project with anybody that you don't know can be a little weary. I know Brian and we started talking a year and a half ago almost, and I liked him immediately. Obviously, he's a great guy. You can tell by just being on the video here. But me being a business owner and having 10 people here, and Brian having 35 up to 40 at sometimes people working, it can get kind of confusing. So, but as a business leader or CEO or president or owner or anything like that, I think keeping expectations in check is very important, because I was having a conversation with you, Brian, last week, and your partner about a project, and he said 30 days, and I said I need it in 30 minutes. So that's a expectation that you guys needed to straighten me out on. So I think dealing with a partner that tells you the truth up front and can get a 2x4 and hit you in the head with it and tell you, no, man, go, not be afraid to tell you the truth or make suggestions. You don't want to be the naked emperor here, because there are a lot of companies that will allow you to walk naked through their office and say that you look great. In reality, you don't look great. You're naked. You need somebody that's going to keep you in line. So that's kind of my
100%. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, on ours, it's definitely not easy, especially to find technology partners, right? That's why the inroads through personal relationships are some of the best. They're usually in the same industry as you already naturally, if that's some of your connections or they've worked with similar customers. So they'll have that good understanding. And of course, the ability to decrease some risk because someone knows that person for an extended period of time and really knows what they're all about, right? As a person, not just as an organization. So for us, we've defined some of our most successful partnerships, as well as, we look at our clients as being a partner to their business and the extension. But, we say the most successful ones align industry experts, a shared domain understanding, and technology expertise, right? So if we were looking to, the Ari company, somebody lab side, pharma, from our end, Ari's team is the industry expert in that space. They know how they want to grow their business. They know their entire catalog of products. They know which ones sell the most to what customers at what time of year, right? I don't know all of that. But we have a shared understanding of how the supply chain works. How does he track pallets? Where does he store inventory? How is that inventory catalog? Do you have drop for ship partners, or do you manage all the inventory yourself, right? So we have a shared domain understanding of how the industry works. What are common things in the supply chain? How do you manage your invoices? Does this type of industry have net 30, net 60, or net 90 terms, right? Things like that, where you don't have to explain to the company that you're working with all the norms of your industry and the ins and outs, right? And then, of course, outside of everything else, that partner should bring the technology expertise. So we like to say, we have a lot of team of seasoned engineers. So nowadays, technology is not coming to the point of a full commodity. But if you're looking for an engineer on a certain technology, there's a lot of options, right? But just being able to use Excel, just being able to code in a language, is not enough, right? They need to have that shared domain understanding so they can really contribute to the project once they understand your goals. So Ari, I know, like you mentioned, right, from the Udo side, it could be hard to find a partner in the beginning, in the US specifically. Obviously, we are one of them as a small note. But when you first started and you were looking out in the other countries, right, and maybe didn't have the barrier of meeting people, how did you find your right partner or the right fit as you went to go to Odoo and go after that ERP approach?
Yeah, that wasn't that one wasn't easy at that point. This was 2017. It's definitely progressed since then, through Google actually. So it's just a Google search in our area. And then I went to our laboratory association group and saw if anybody used Odoo or knew a consultant. But that was basically my research at that time. It's definitely evolved. Odoo has evolved in the past 4 years. So there's more consultants than ever before. And it keeps on growing. The community keeps on growing. But in anything you decide or choose, there's definitely some research involved. Always do research and due diligence. See who else is implemented. If you know them, if you can reach out to that company, other people who have implemented, what are some of the challenges? Because there's always going to be challenges.
Yes.
There's no silver bullet that basically is the answer, end all be all of a solution. Even Odoo has some challenges. Any platform has every platform has a challenge, but there's also benefits to it. So do the pros outweigh the cons for you, and it's always good to hear from a company who's implemented, especially someone your size or the size that you want to be in the future.
Exactly. And, a simple thing too, right, is anybody that's a technology expert in that space, right, or says they have worked with other people, right, client references is one point, but getting demos of the application. A lot of people
Absolutely.
don't think to ask that. Please ask to say, can I see a module of the client that you built for, and get that visual, right? Because a lot of people in the early stage of digital transformation, when so much of the strategy is on paper, but you can't visually see any of these solutions, it's really hard to identify which one's the right one for you without just putting all of your trust in the partner or consultant. So I know we're coming a little bit shorter on time, but I think we're right on pace. So I'm just going to kind of combine our last 2 points because I think they go naturally together, right? So once you've chosen that technology and a partner or internal partners, right, that are going to drive the execution of that project, once that project is done, the most important thing, right, the first one's going to be less than 6 months. You have to gather feedback and refine. You have to make sure that you're continuing to nurture that culture, that you're clearly defining what your KPIs are, right? We want 100 Google reviews by the end of the year, and that you're ensuring that every person that's on that team understands what their role is towards that KPI. How are they going to be held accountable? And most importantly, how are you going to make sure you stay consistent and accountable for your role in that project? And having a strong feedback loop is going to make sure that you're connecting all the feedback across that whole value chain at each step that you release a new project. And you'll be very surprised, to all the answers that will come back up of marginal improvements that when you take those 20 points, now has your whole organization running 5% smoother, right? Because it's how they all wanted to use the system. So once you can get that feedback loop in place, using that value chain and the nurtured culture, then it's just a matter of rinsing and repeating, right? There's going to be challenges. There's going to be new projects. You're going to start small, go again. You're going to rinse and repeat these steps. And each time take that valuable feedback, go back to step one, identify your why on that new step, and know that as you go through every transformation, new ideas are going to come up. New connections will emerge, and that's fine. Fully embrace them and identify them as opportunities, but just make sure that your business strategy stays strict, right? And you don't end up chasing the shiny object. So I know we're getting towards the end, but Brandon, from your end, how do we want to wrap up? We got them through, of course, where the whole strategy is in place. Now they're going to feedback and refine. So are there any final thoughts that you want to leave them with that will, drive more people to start their journey today?
I always say this, man, just start, man. Get a napkin and a pen. And just like we used to do that in sales a long, long time ago, the napkin close, just draw it out. If you have a whiteboard, get a marker and just start mapping things out. I think that's the best way. And just use a resource like yourself, Brian. I mean, you're a great guy. You're very personable. Use a resource like Ari. If you're in the lab business or you're thinking about it, or you have a bigger thing, the stuff that he's doing is fundamentally fundamentally correct 100,000%. And some of the things are just dead simple things, that we overlook. I tend to want to jump, up 5 sets of steps. But if I just put my left foot on the first step, I'm going to be way far ahead of everybody else, because what they're going to do is jump too far and fall backwards. So that's it. Just use your resources, man. Use the people on this line. And everybody that's been on these webinars, use them. John, Mike, Lenny, Ari, reach out to them. That's it.
Definitely. No, and Ari, I think we could go for another hour if we had it. So we'd love to, maybe have you on in a couple months again, catch up on the transformation, and maybe give people a look at some technology that doesn't give away your secrets. But we really appreciate you taking the time. I think we uncovered some great details that hopefully everybody listening can take actionable steps away to start their digital transformation. So with that, guys, we've officially concluded the part 4 of the How to Define Your Digital Journey. We are very excited. We've gotten some great feedback, so we're most likely going to be doing 1 a month going forward. So be sure to just watch out on the channels, keep your eyes out for updates. And in the meantime, feel free to head to YouTube to subscribe and check out our website at go.incipientcorp.com/how to define your digital journey. Thanks again, Ari and Brandon.
Thank you.